So how do you really plan for retirement? Now, when I hear the word retirement planning, it kind of ticks me off a little bit because let's be honest, like I don't think everybody, and maybe you're like me, but I was able to retire twice by the time I was 39 and I never want to quit to some level, right? I always want to do something that gives me purpose and passion. Retirement, just the word alone sounds like it's, hey, let's just put you to death, right? Like, let's just get rid of you. Let's put that dog to sleep, so to speak. That's what it kind of feels like here too. And so today I want to really talk about how do you actually plan for retirement, or what I like to say instead is work optional. Well, how do we actually do that? And what are the details that actually get you there? So let's dig into that. Okay, so as we dive in, let's talk about really not just how to plan for retirement, but even how to get that retirement to keep growing year after year so that you never go broke. All right, so first and foremost, we got to do the math. And I say this all the time, but it's true. Like if you're at point A and you're trying to get to point Z, or here in your viewpoint, point A to point Z, I see it opposite because I'm facing you, right? But point A to point Z, you're trying to get there. You need to make sure that you have that point Z clear. And the problem is this, and this is the same problem I had even when I was a traditional financial advisor, was I was trying to help you plan for retirement. So I'd ask you questions like, okay, what age would you like to retire by? And how much income would you want to have? What would be that income? And almost every time people would say, well, income as much as I can get and retire as early as I can, right? And so it was always nebulous, like, all right, well, what is it? And if people didn't give me numbers, I couldn't do any retirement planning because you had to like calculate it all, and then I'd have to throw in some, compounding interest calculator. And I would say, oh, you know what? Based on 12% rate of return, which the market's never done, but if you got 12%, then it'll be this. But if you got 10%, it'll be this. Or you got 8%, it'll be this. And then you have to save this much more, and save like double and all that kind of stuff, right? And so it got kind of maddening because the truth is this, and it was something I heard from Ben Stein. He's the actor that, if you ever watch Ferris Bueller's Day Off, he's the one that says Bueller. But he actually was a Harvard economist, and his dad was one as well. And his dad taught him this phrase. He says, figures don't lie, but liars figure. And isn't that true? Like I could just put in whatever number I want and make you feel all warm and fuzzy. But the truth is, at the end of the day, or at the end of your working life, so to speak, if you're there, it doesn't really matter, because if it's not enough, then you're gonna have to keep saving for years and years. This is what happened with my own dad. He was diligently putting his money away into retirement. He had paid off all his debt in 18 years, so he's totally debt-free with his 401k. He's been getting the match on and everything else. And yet, even at 61 years old, I had to tell him, Dad, if you retire today, you better hope you die in 5 years, because that's when you'll run out of money. And that bothered me as someone who is trying to sell people the dream, right? That there's retirement, it's possible, only to show him and say, wow, you're the guy that was like the ultra penny pinching saver, and even you can't retire. That's a problem. And so what I want to really talk about today is really what makes it more real. Because the truth is, if you can shorten that timeline, there's less variables, right? There's less, guessing about what inflation is going to be like or not, which a lot of retirement planners don't even want to factor in because it gets depressing. For example, if I lowered my returns from 12% down to 8%, which is close to what real returns are in the stock market, and then I raise, inflation up to like 3, 4, or 5%, all of a sudden people are losing hope. Nobody can actually make it. Pretty much what you find out is even if you get a 401k with a match, whatever you're saving per year is what you live on per year when you factor in inflation. That's just not good enough, right? So I want to give you another option here. Another way to not just retire, but even become work optional, and you may not even have to wait till you're 59 and a half, 60, 70, or 80,000 years old. You might even be able to do it much sooner. Okay, so let's just talk about the when, right? We talked about that before, like not even just how much you have to save, but let's just talk about the when you want to retire or become work optional. And work optional, I say this because, like I said, retirement is kind of a bad word to me, but work optional says that you have enough income coming in that you could stop working today, but you choose to keep working if you want to. You have that choice. You work because you want to, not because you have to. And I'll tell you, that's the best place to be when it comes to financial freedom. Now, if you say, I'm good with retiring at 65 or 70, then the traditional retirement plans, doing 401ks and IRAs, even if you invest in other things besides mutual funds, can be a great option. But let's just say you want to retire at age 50. Why would you put your money into a vehicle like a 401k that makes you retire after the age of 59 and a half, really like 60 years old or older? If you want to retire at 50, why would you stuff all your money in that? You wouldn't. That would be the wrong vehicle to get you there. If I want to drive from San Francisco to LA, no problem, I could take a car. But the thing is, if I want to go from San Francisco to Tokyo, I can't take a car, can I? If I try to take a car, I will drown very quickly. I will not even make it to Hawaii. And too bad, that would be a great place to die. But I'm not going to even make it that far, right? I'm going to have a plane or at least a boat, even though that might be slower, but at least a plane to get me to my destination. So if you're trying to gamble on a 401k but retire early, you're making the wrong moves. You're actually using the wrong vehicles to get you there. You need to use something that doesn't have those age requirements or those limitations where you have 10% penalty and taxes if you pull out too early. That's not a good thing to do. And so you got to make sure the vehicles match up with the type of thing you're doing. This is why a lot of people I work with, they're usually in the ballpark of their 30s or 40s, maybe 50s. And even if they could retire in their 60s, they still want the option, if they could do it sooner, they want to do it sooner. And that means they may or may not want to use their IRAs or 401ks because they don't have to wait till later. So we might use cash outside of those plans to go invest. Now you could actually invest in things like real estate using an IRA or your old 401ks. You can actually put into things like real estate, but still the rules apply. You have to wait till you're 60. So instead, we might move that money out. This is why we talk about infinite banking, because infinite banking is a great place to store money and still be able to use it, and you can actually earn money in two places at the same time. You can still invest it wherever you want and pick up a little extra interest along the way within the life insurance too. And that's a great strategy to use if you're trying to retire before the age of 59 and a half. And by the way, even if you're planning on 59 and a half, what if all of a sudden the government decides to change the rules? What if they change the rules and say, instead of 59 and a half, you're going to need to wait till 62 or 64 and a half or whatever it might be, right? If they keep pushing back the age, you have to follow along with their rules. They can change the rules at any time, whatever pleases them. That's what they'll do, and you have no say in the matter. So just be aware that if you're doing things like qualified plans, 401ks, IRAs, TSPs, all that kind of stuff, right? If you're doing those kind of plans, you might be subject to the whims of whatever politician's in office at that time. So be sure you have investments that will support your plan. Now, moving on, if we want to figure out what investments you can do, a lot of times in this channel, we've talked about a lot of different things. We talk about real estate backed investments, things that have a little bit more certainty. Understand that if you're trying to retire on a certain amount of money, remember I would try to put in that compounding interest calculator and say what they would have. The truth is most people don't even get 8% rates of return consistently in the stock market. So if you even put in like say 7%, when you factor in fees and everything else, put in 7% return based on how much you're saving per month or per year, and then put that into whatever retirement date you want. And by the way, you can go to calculator.net, find these, these compounding interest calculators or whatnot, but you start putting those numbers in, but then remember for inflation, if you put in even just 4%, and I think 4% is low. We all know the government lies about inflation, right? It's probably closer to more like 6 or 7%, but we're trying to be conservative here, so to speak. So even if you put in 4%, you'll realize you don't have a lot. And remember, when you're trying to do traditional retirement plans with mutual funds, when you get to that point, so you look at that number, you see that after inflation adjusted number, then times that number by 3%, and that's the lifestyle you're living. So even if you compounded and grew that interest, and all of a sudden it said, hey, you're gonna have $2.1 million, but after inflation, it's like $600,000, right? And then you see that number, but then they say, but now you gotta live on 3%, 600,000 times 3%, $18,000 a year. And you're probably thinking, well, that sucks. That's not very good, right? Even if you happen to get to $1 million after inflation, still $30,000 a year. This is why I, as a financial planner, when I was trying to run those numbers, I would lower inflation to like 1 or 2% because it was too depressing to show real numbers. That's the truth. So what else can you do? And this is what a lot of our clients have done. They realize, wait, I can take this money, we can earn potentially double-digit returns. So for example, let's just say you have $600,000 now, not even later, but just now you have $600,000. Well, if you earn 10% on that money, that's $60,000 a year in today's money. And even if you start compounding it, which you can also compound that interest rate in the calculator and see what happens, and you can see that number is much higher. But here's the key thing, even with the after inflation number, if you're now earning 10% on that money, guess what? Now you're earning a lot more. And that's why a lot of our clients are finding, they're like, wait a minute, I could actually become work optional in 10, 15 years. Some people even like within a year or two. That's possible? Yes, it is, because you're earning better returns and it's paying you income. And that's the key, is that when you start to earn income now, and then you compound that income, and it could be like compounding interest in some ways, but when you're earning more interest, and on top of that, you're reinvesting it to make more money, it's much better. I'll give you an example with one investment that I have. It's a business partnership I have where we buy and sell raw land. Now I'm doing none of the buying and selling. I am literally just financing it. Now, even with the business costs, the startup costs, and everything else up front, I put in about $250,000 up front. We've been reinvesting all the money. So we've put in over $400,000 total, including the business expenses. By the way, I got a nice write-off year one because it was a business expense. But then two, even after about 2.5 years, that income is now over $11,000 a month. That's over $130,000 a year with $400,000, which part of that actually went to pay for the business. Now, it didn't always look that way. Initially, when we started, it was roughly about $2,000 a month after a few months. Even though I had over $100,000 invested, it was only generating about $2,000 a month. That's still very good, but it wasn't amazing. And that was after I put in really another $100,000 of business expenses too. So it looked like I was making maybe 1% a month. But as we started to take that income, that $2,000 a month, and add it to the bank account balance, and after a few months, we'd have enough to buy another property, another lot, and then we'd turn around and try to sell that. And pretty soon we might be able to buy multiple lots, because some of them might be $500, some of them might be $10,000. So we just take the income, keep reinvesting it. And in the beginning, it was slow. Even after a year, I said, wow, okay, I've now invested about $250,000, making $4,000 a month. Not bad, but not fantastic. But then as time went on, as it got better and better and better, and really just, even a year later, it was about $8,000 a month. So about doubled. And now, even just less than that time later, now it's at $11,000 a month. And I'd expect in a few months, it'll probably break the $12,000 a month mark, right? Because we're reinvesting that money again and again and again. That's compounding income. Most people just teach you compounding interest, which is really the financial advisor's way. It's like a slick sales tactic they use to say, listen, you set it and forget it. You don't look at it, don't ride the ups or downs, because that'll just drive you insane. So just put it away. We'll just meet every year and I'll tell you how you're on a good track, and just keep going. Save more money, because they'll always tell you to keep saving more money. It's never enough. That's why they'll blame you at the end. They'll say you just didn't save enough, even though you saved exactly what they told you to. But you'll keep putting that money away, but you'll set it and forget it. Don't look at it all the meanwhile. And they're telling you you're compounding interest. But the truth is, you're just compounding their income, because they're making money off of your fees. They're getting guaranteed fees whether you make money or not. Even if you lose 10, 20, 30% in the stock market, they're still getting paid. Even though you've lost money, they get paid. Doesn't that sound kind of criminal to you a little bit? Yeah, it's ridiculous. They always get paid where you don't always get paid. That's the difference. Here, instead you take your own control, and yeah, that can be scary, but the truth is that really, anything that's great in life, if you think about anything you've done amazing in your life that's made a difference, it probably was scary in the beginning, wasn't it? But by doing it differently, and then doing it in a place where you're actually buying real assets versus gambling in some stock market that gets blown away because somebody tries to get assassinated, or somebody forgets their line, and all of a sudden the country's gonna fall apart, or whatever it might be, or there's some crazy thing that airlines shut down for a few days and everybody freaks out and panics and sells off their stocks, right? There's no guarantee. It's all based on emotions and whim. I don't like to base my money off emotions. I like to base my money off of reality. And that's why I use real estate and other alternative investments. All right, so you're probably wondering, how do you actually plan your own retirement? Well, great thing is you can go to moneyripples.com. You can actually use a passive income calculator to see how much you can create right now, like in the next year or so, and then see how you can compound that income as well. So go visit moneyripples.com today.